Okay, well, welcome to, I think it's day 4 for you guys, right? And of Avalanche Creates. My name is Josh Wadinski. I'm with Circle. I'm going to walk you guys through a bunch of non-technical kind of marketing growth hacky stuff. Really quick about my background. I've been with Circle now for since earlier this year. At Circle, I work on strategy and a bunch of go-to-market launches that we do, both multi-chain stuff and a lot of work with Avalanche. Prior to that, I was with a algo stable, credit-based algo stable on Ethereum. Worked on that in 2021, I think. Before that, I was CTO at a startup. I was a founder before that, and then I spent a long time doing system dynamic modeling and some ML stuff for knowledge and insights teams. That being said, today what we're going to really tackle is kind of like really high-level growth marketing. So I'm not sure in the audience kind of to get a feel who knows about growth marketing or marketing as a whole. So it's going to start very high level, and then we'll jump into some of the weeds of what we do at Circle. Don't want to be overly rigid, so if there's something that pops up, interrupt me or do the finger thing. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&A, and we'll go from there. Also, I think timelines are a little kind of off, so it might be a little short, might be a little long. I'm going to play DJ up here and try to gauge your audience as I look into your eyes. Okay, so and also like I'm hyper nervous, so we'll deal with it. Okay, so high level, when we think about, I guess, growth marketing as a whole and what we're going to cover, every product is basically has its own benefits to it, but really when you think about growth marketing, the best way I like to think about it actually is trying to find self-selecting users, and that's kind of going to be the overall premise as a whole when we're working through what growth marketing is. What we'll cover from this as a whole is what I call the builder's fallacy out of the gate, and then really high level what growth marketing is and how that compares to traditional marketing. Jump into the weeds a little bit more with the beloved marketing funnel. I don't know if any of you have heard of Argmati, but it's like a way of thinking of the funnel, but from a retention perspective. So we'll walk through that in some detail and then talk about product market fit. And then starting the third bullet point, we'll start to jump into the weeds a little bit more of what this actually means for us at Circle, what our go-to-markets look like, things that you guys can keep top of mind. And then lastly, some really quick, easy wins that you guys can implement, as soon as today. And then, like I said, Q&A. So feel free to interrupt along the way. But with that being said, let's jump in. So high level, I think this part's really significant. Again, don't know, trying to gauge the audience, but I really am not of the mindset that if you build the best product, they will come. I went through this myself with my own startup. I built what I thought was the most amazing product in the world, and I didn't really care at all about how to promote it. The reality is, like, you've got to immediately start shouting from the rooftops that you built something. And so, in short, you can build a great product, but the awareness and the attention's not always there. And so, an emphasis of marketing, whatever you want to call it, traditional marketing, growth marketing, whatever, anything non-technical, how do you spread the word about it? And I think a super simple example of this from like a Web3 and from a crypto and from a DAO perspective is when you look at stablecoins. So I work heavily in stablecoins. I've been in stables now for 2 years. If I were to gauge the audience here and I were to ask, like, who can list like 5 stablecoins or maybe 10 stablecoins? If you can list 10 stablecoins, I think that's pretty bold. I mean, if you can list 20 altcoins plus stablecoins, that's great. I myself, like, I can't list 10. I mean, it's like USDC, USDT, FEI, Frax, BUSD, Bean, LUSD. Like, I spend every day doing this, and I can't even list the 20 so that are listed on stablecoins.wtf or Basis or ESD. I mean, you'll be able to get a few, but you're not going to, there's like 150 stablecoins in the market, right? And the reality is, like, nobody knows about them, and that's because you don't have the awareness. So even, for example, our beloved crashed UST, despite what you think about it, one thing that they did exceptionally well was they had great marketing, right? So everyone in the world, unfortunately, who even lost their shirts from it, knew about it. So obviously, it's the upside of marketing. And again, I think a lot of developers and a lot of builders as a whole really try to shy away from this, but at the end of the day, when you saw their market cap and their TVL, it was as big as it was because they had a massive cult following, and they did a great job with growth marketing as a whole. So that being said, I think that when you actually start to think of what growth marketing is, again, like the subset of marketing, just trying to spread the word to the people, and so to speak. Typically, marketing as a whole, previously in a lot of Web 2 and Fortune 100 companies, the idea at the end of the day was, how do you get these sales? How are you going to get just someone to make this purchase, and that's it, close the deal. I think one of the beauties of Web 3 as a whole is that there's a much bigger emphasis on kind of getting rid of the idea of the customer and really building up a community, and that community becomes your viral consumer base, frankly. And that's definitely the main difference, in my opinion, between growth marketing in the Web 3 space versus like any other industry. And then the other big piece of this as well is like the viral effect that you can have, because so much of us are spending our time online. I mean, prior to Circle, the community I was with was entirely pseudonymous, pseudonymous, I guess it was anonymous. We didn't know anyone's face, et cetera. And so everything that we did was about spreading everything we could online. So I think the virality effect is incredibly different in Web 3. But just to talk through, I guess, more traditional marketing versus growth marketing again, and this is still the mindset of how are you building awareness of your product. Typically with traditional marketing, the idea was more so along the lines of you're trying to convert quickly, you're just trying to get this sale, you get the customer in the door, and frankly, you don't really care about them. Whereas with growth marketing, again, you're trying to create these evangelists for your brand. You yourself are the builder, you love it, you believe in it, and all you're trying to do is get the next person to share that with the next person to share that with the next person. When it comes to traditional marketing, previously, again, the idea was just really about how do we get them to buy our product? I don't even care what the product is. I could be selling you, I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of the tobacco industry, but I can get you to buy a pack of cigarettes. Just buy the product, I don't care. Conversely, Circle might not want me saying that, but whatever, I have no idea. Either way, versus in growth marketing, really the idea is like in my mind, like how are you actually helping the individual love themselves, so to speak, more? Like how do you create a product that they're going to want to continue to use over and over, regardless of your existence? And that's like Patagonia is a great example. I mean, what Patagonia represents is really great. Like their closed loop process as a whole, I think, is something that every single clothing company should adhere to if you really care about sustainability. So I don't care. I feel better about myself because of what that company represents, and that extends from, everyday, like in real life stuff all the way through Web 3. If you've got a protocol, like Klima DAO is a great example, right? Klima is great in some ways, it's terrible in some other ways, but really the idea of what Klima is trying to do is work on carbon sequestration and carbon capture and help you understand your footprint. And as a result, like, nobody wants to burn the planet, and you feel better about yourself. So their growth marketing is like innately built into their mission itself. And then lastly, really quick, in traditional marketing, again, revenue at the end of the day is all that matters. Don't get me wrong, revenue matters incredibly, like you have to have it to survive. But really, I think the change of growth marketing is more so how quickly can you start to build this kind of community mindset within the users. So then that brings up what is my kind of hacky version of what a funnel looks like. Again, I'm not playful enough to say this, but I'll try it with you guys. So like the easiest way to remember this acronym is like ARG, like a pirate. Yeah, anyway. So you built the product. The next big thing is educating on it, and then make friends or whatever. But really, once you've got this product built and you think of kind of top of funnel, again, let's say it's a new stablecoin, and let's say it's a fully collateralized stablecoin, and let's say it's a fully reserved collateralized stablecoin that's backed for one, and we happen to call it USDC. How do you actually reach out to people, and how, like, you're not going to get 7 billion people to use the product right away. You want it, everyone wants that, but the reality is you've got to narrow down that topic. So like top of funnel, there's nothing different here between like traditional marketing and growth marketing. Narrow down that subset of people that you're going to be targeting. And then you start tracking them along the way. And so each of these different marks, whether it's awareness, where you're just trying to help people get aware of the product, you're starting to acquire them, seeing on, we're getting new Discord membership because we targeted the right group of people. We targeted this random group of people that doesn't care for like the different region of the world that may not care about USDC. We're not getting any acquisition. Okay, we have to change that. You can get metrics along the way for all of this. And then the further we go down, we actually see an activation. So let's say, for example, we're running classes on Discord, and we're seeing our attendance goes up. Okay, great, our acquisition's there. And then from an activation perspective, we're seeing people are attending our weekly classes that we have that educate them on what collateralized versus non-collateralized stablecoins are. We see them repeating that, which is the retention. So maybe they're coming to repeated classes over and over again. And then the next thing we know, they're jumping to our site or they're jumping to a vendor and they're using USDC for transactions, which is the revenue side of it. And then most significantly is the referral at the end of it, and that's how you build a community. I think actually like the way I think of all of this stuff and what I really love the most about Web3 is if I think of like awareness through retention and the referral side, like it's all education based in my opinion. And I think that that's actually like one of the most significant things again about growth marketing, but more specifically why I'm such a big advocate of Web3 is I think the most significant marketing tool you always have is education. And each of those outside of revenue is a reflection of that. Like a stronger consumer base is always a better consumer base in my mind. And it doesn't matter what part of marketing you're trying to focus on. Oddly enough, it's also why I'm a big fan of the student loan debt bubble, like random caveat, but like we have a very educated population that's very critical for the first time actually really ever in history. And so now you've got people that are not just buying products because they were told to buy a product, but they're actually thinking much more about it. And how are they thinking about it? It's because you're providing them education. So random tangents, but I think in the end of the day, education really ties to the consumer funnel, no matter the kind of marketing you're looking at. How's the volume? Great, thanks. Okay, so next, you've got a product, it's really great. You've kind of started to go through the funnel, but the reality is you might have to iterate, you might have to pivot. So product market fit, as played out as it might sound, is incredibly important and is always something that people need to be thinking about. Again, not sure where you are, maybe you just launched the product for the first time or beta. Some of this might be baked into your metrics already, or maybe you've got an angel investor who's just breathing down your throat to get these, these stats from you of how your funnel's looking and what your active users look like, et cetera. So a lot of this is tried and true Web 2 stuff that works really well. There's no reason to break that. But as you go through this list, it might be the case that the market's already there and the product's already there, so you just need to really penetrate into that. It's typically tough to break into markets that are hypersaturated, as a lot of us know. But then as you go down, maybe it's a new product and a new market, which is incredibly difficult. So you might be trying to launch, I don't know, maybe you've got a 7-wheel bike for the first time that you think is the best thing in the world. How do you get regular tricyclists to think that's a significant thing? Random idea. And then there's a new market with an existing product. How do you just basically reach broader top of funnel? And that kind of as this all ties into Circle, just a little quick history for Circle itself, which is specifically about the idea of an existing market and product. So Circle didn't initially launch, well, I guess show of hands, Circle, does anyone know? Everyone knows USDC. Yeah? Okay, cool. And then Circle is the parent company of USDC. Right on. So before we launched USDC, did you guys know that we had stuff before USDC? Okay, right on. So initially Circle launched a wallet called Circle Pay and didn't do so well. That's why you don't know us for that. And then there was an attempt at an exchange as well for a little bit. But as that was happening, it became pretty clear that the users and the market wanted something, specifically they wanted liquidity away from altcoins that had high volatility. So that's where this notion of a stablecoin came into play, basically, as we learned from our market and from our customers, oh, okay, this product's not sticking, this product's not sticking. Oh, this is the product you want? Lo and behold, why don't we make that exact same thing for you? And that's where the birthplace of USDC came into play. And there's a whole other piece of this with Circle in terms of like we're very pro-regulation. We believe in working closely with the government, et cetera. Happy to talk about any of that in detail. But basically from that, we had to go through this funnel ourselves and then make a very drastic pivot, I mean, entirely away from the idea of having an app to having a currency itself. So just goes to show, again, like this idea of product market fit doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how quickly you're trying to scale. It's always important to hear what the customers want. So great, we've got, for example, at Circle, we've got USDC. It's this lovely idea of keeping a coin one for one. And now the next really big piece of what you're going to do once you've got the product, it doesn't matter if it's if it's a token, if it's a DAO, if it's a dApp, whatever it is that you think that you're trying to get a user base for. And the next big piece is how you're actually going to start sharing that with the world through a go-to-market. So what I'm going to go through now is kind of like high level, the way that we think about go-to-market at Circle. So we actually launched USDC on Avalanche back in 2021. Again, we kind of believe in Avalanche can kind of cover their ears. We believe in a multi-chain world, and so we're constantly looking at other chains we put USDC on. But I can walk you guys through the ways that we think about our go-to-market and things that you guys can actually kind of start to implement now. Also, I should preface this with, we have the luxury at Circle of being a big team with a big marketing arm, with a lot of people, but everything that I'm going to talk through are things that one marketer on a team can start to implement yourself, right? Like, the rate of speed is obviously different, but all of this is executable for a team of 2 as much as a team for 800 people. So when we think of launching a new coin, or we're launching USDC on a new chain like Avalanche, the first thing that we do after we go through the engineering, the PM cycle, and actually work through all the contracts and have everything in place, is we go and spell out the go-to-market brief. And these, I'm not sure, has anyone created like a go-to-market brief or spelled out like a market strategy in here? Looks like maybe 15, 20% of the people. Incredibly helpful for everyone. So imagine you build this product and you're in your closet and you've spent the past 3 months churning it out, but you don't explain it to the world. And so the go-to-market brief is really the first time, and I can't emphasize this enough, that you get to actually start spelling out all of the stuff that you've created. And so when we're doing go-to-market briefs at Circle, these end up being like 12, 15-page docs, where I'm just literally like in the back room writing down everything we know, both about what the product is, what the goals are, establishing metrics in terms of like who are we actually trying to reach, how many users are we trying to get, how many exchanges are we trying to be involved with, are we going to be getting involved with market makers, like just spelling out every single idea that I can, along with my team, and then explaining the background of the product itself. Again, some of this may even seem redundant. If you were the builder, you might not think that you need to explain it, but always retelling your story is going to be much easier to tell it the second time, the third time, the fourth time. It doesn't matter what the process is. Practice is always going to make things more perfect. Then go through and actually spell out the use cases. So like, again, you've got this great product. Depending on where you are in that product market fit that we walked through just now, maybe nobody knows how to use it. Maybe everybody knows how to use it. It doesn't matter. You need to be able to spell that out yourself, because if you yourself can't explain how to use the product, then a customer is surely not going to be able to use it. Walk through the audience a little bit more detail, pain points that you might even have with it. I mean, I think one of my favorite things about both Circle and the previous protocol I was at is like we perpetually talk about our flaws as we're talking about our strengths and how we're going to be working and stuff in the future. And it definitely takes a different muscle to flex that, to find out like what your flaws are as you're building something and how you can improve on it. And so talking through pain points in advance is really good, but then the opposite side of that is the messaging itself, right? Like, how are you actually going to position this with customers? In 1 to 2 sentences, how can you explain your product? In 2 to 4 sentences, how do you explain your product? When they're thinking about, like right now the idea of a multi-chain future, if you look at layer 2s, there's a ton of layer 2s that are coming to market. How does one layer 2 compare to a different layer 2, right? How does Optimism compare to Arbitrum versus Polygon? And then specifically, how does our product pair into that? And going through all of this process and spending as much time as you can to basically churn all of this out is always going to be helpful, again, when you're telling your story. Listing out FAQs, talking about potential partnerships that you guys have, and then lastly, like the launch time and the strategy. So I say all this, we spend probably, I mean, in a good case scenario, I spend maybe 3 to 4 weeks just working on a go-to-market brief. And then I start mapping the people that I'm going to be going to along the way, so keep people updated. So once we actually have the kickoff, again, a lot of luxury at Circle. So we've got like a demand gen team, we've got a creative team, we've got a content team, we've got a copywriting team. But each of those people who are going to be helping execute this go-to-market brief, again, we have to tell all of them the story over and over and over and over again. Actually, today I've got a go-to-market kickoff in an hour, actually, for a different project. And it's literally just repeating and repeating and repeating it. And so that they can go and do the same exact thing. So it's, again, some of this may sound very obvious for anyone who's ever worked in any organization ever or planned a schedule. But meetings and having cadence and having repeated conversations to really soak that thinking into your own team or your own community is always going to be value add. And then lastly, before we go live, or before like officially live is the go live, or that whatever, that doesn't make sense. But having a firm date in itself is incredibly valuable for us, both us internally to keep our partners accountable, how we're sharing with our community. I can't tell you enough. For example, we go back and forth with Eng of like, this is doable, this is not doable, this is doable, this is not. And we obviously can't go to anyone and build credibility if we're like, oh, we just had to push this back a month. You have to make sacrifices along the way. Nothing can be perfect, but timelines are always going to be significant. And then lastly, kind of most importantly, is don't just go live and forget about it. Again, I think it depends on the size of the product and what teams are building. But thinking of how you can perpetually kind of nourish that relationship after you've already gone live with the content is really relevant. Okay, so easy wins, and then I'll wrap it up. But this is just kind of what I was trying to do on this slide is think like, okay, if I don't know if anyone's done marketing here, maybe that someone's never thought about it, maybe they don't care about it, maybe it's all you guys do. It's great if you do or not. But in general, these are just some really quick wins of what you might actually be able to do, if you've got any time at all before your launch. So let's say you do actually have a full month, like I just mentioned with this go-to-market brief, spell out the entire growth marketing strategy that we talked through. Literally just start writing it today, draft a funnel, answer any of the questions that we had in here for each of these stages that we walked through when I tried to talk like a pirate earlier. Start getting any customer feedback that you can, run a beta to get customer feedback, hone in on the messaging, start working on the go-to-market brief, start listening to content. Again, this is just like, you got a month out, you got plenty of time, it's all gravy, and start putting some stuff on the calendar so everyone knows about it. Start working on landing pages, start working on any activations you guys can have between now and then, any partnerships that you guys can have between now and then. And then worst case scenario, let's say you're not sure how you can use any of this. Like the other beauty of working on something like a go-to-market brief in advance is a lot of that can translate into content that you can use in your Git book, right? Like let's say you don't end up following anything that you're gonna use, but now you can really explain exactly what your product is. Like we've run into this at Circle because we've gone back and forth a couple of times of what the company really represents. So I think of us as a Web3 fintech company, but it definitely changed from where it was, when we had Circle Pay and we were a wallet. And that's content that largely came from these go-to-market briefs that now is kind of staple content that we use internally to articulate who we are. And then the last part of that is you've got time, share it in every way that you can, in any way that you can. Let's say for some reason you've got something happening next week and you're launching a feature or you're launching a product. If you've got time, one great thing that I love to do, and did this at the last protocol I was with, is we set up like community bounties to help on the marketing front. So Layer 3 is an awesome protocol that works with Avalanche. You can just go out there and you can just say, hey, we want to have a contest of like a one-page explainer that we can drop anywhere for how you'd actually explain this protocol, how you explain this DApp, how you explain our DAO. You have people basically do crowd-funded bounties, and then you can reward them with a POAP. Another example of that actually is like 101. So 101.xyz, it's a way to just set up a class that helps with education as well. If you're a week out, super quick win, easy to do it. I'm pretty sure they're integrated with Avalanche. And if not, let me know and I can talk to Tim. The guy that started it, he's happy to do it too. But either way, it's an easy thing. You set up a class. Someone takes 2 seconds, like a two-minute class, they get a POAP at the end of it, and all of a sudden they're aware of your brand, and it's much easier to spread the message. Again, a week in advance. That was 101, 101.xyz, yeah. But yeah, and if there is an equivalent of that, if they're not on Avalanche, I'm sure that there's an equivalent of just basically a POAP-based education DApp. And then you're a week out, run a spaces. I can't tell you enough. Like these, I think you guys probably a lot of you may know this, but these have been invaluable for us, both at the previous protocol and currently where I'm at with Circle. Like AMAs in general, just a great way for us to articulate what we're doing. Do the basic Web 2 stuff of tagging everything and throwing it up on YouTube. Again, helps with all the SEO. And then on that last note, just do the Web 2 stuff. It's not always fun and sexy, but put Tag Manager up on your site, use Hotjar, track how users are actually falling off on your site. Like all of that Web 2 stuff shouldn't get thrown away. It's incredibly valuable. You've got a week in advance to do it. Let's say you're launching something tomorrow, you happen to be launching something on Avalanche, from what I can see so far, you can get pretty quick turnaround from getting listed on their ecosystem page. Again, of all the chains that we work with, I've got to be honest, I think Avalanche has one of the most approachable ecosystem pages from like a marketing perspective. And if you're focused on the top, if you're positioned on the top of that, that's amazing awareness for what you guys are doing. Again, if you're out tomorrow, for some reason you're launching tomorrow, you can put a Medium post together, you can put a public-facing Notion together. You should be able to jot that down, like any of these things that I've talked through pretty quickly, or simply just throw out some tweets. If for some reason any of you in here are going live with a feature or a go-to-market plan in an hour, which actually, ironically, that is literally what I'm doing, and I didn't plan that. It just happens to be the case. But if that happens, really simple win that you can do, jump into your Discord. This has worked extremely well in the past. I've seen other teams do it too. Create a channel, drop a message at everyone, say, hey, we're creating a Twitter army. We want you guys to go out and blast us. It's worked incredibly well to help spread virality. And then just start thinking, I mean, if you're launching in an hour, again, I don't know why you're here. Yeah.
So a lot of this applies to like product growth marketing, but how would this apply or change, or would it be all the same concepts for like fundraising growth marketing, or doing some sort of like fair launch where there's more monetary things involved? Obviously, there's like some financial implications and like things that you have to be careful with regulations, but are all these the same concepts for doing fundraising or a fair launch or anything like that?
So you're talking about like if you're actually talking to investors for the first time and you're trying to get them to...
Or like some back in the day people would do like Kickstarters, right? Or like anything like that, where you're trying to get a community launch, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Where it's not just about the product, but it's about raising funds.
Oh, I mean, if I'm being honest, I do think it is still about the product, and I'm not trying to be contrarian, but if you can't speak about your product with conviction, I don't think anyone's going to want to invest in it. And so I say that because, I mean, you guys know where we are, right? Pitch decks of a story can get a $2 million check. You know, there's someone I know who literally put up one public-facing Notion. I can't give too many details, but one public-facing Notion page, and within 48 hours, he had several million in offer. And I think that I can't stress enough, like I do think that education piece at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're trying to get sales or if you're trying to raise funds, educating anyone on what you're building. I mean, the market's just so hyper-saturated in general, not even just Web3, there's just so many products to choose from. So how you actually educate people of like, what is significant about what you have versus anything else in the market or nothing else that's out in the market, I think this all applies. But good question. Good question. Last thing is, so like, let's say you're live right now. Retweet, quote tweet, always super simple. Get on Twitter, just do it, whatever. Or lastly, attend an event, which is perfect because it's what you're all doing. And then this is my great segue into the Q&A, in the sense that you're here, you're in the Bay Area. I can't stress this enough. Like, there's events every single night. There's Telegram groups on crypto stuff. There's Telegram groups on Web3 stuff. There's Telegram groups on everything. There's always an event that's happening. If you just built it and you've been in the closet for 3 months doing it, get out and start talking to people, start meeting people. And that's my transition to you guys, so I can stop talking and you guys can ask any questions you might have about anything.
Yeah, as you think about the growth marketing question, like a lot of the framing to me seem like you were talking about a product that's like been developed to where it needs to be. What is your thoughts about the growth marketing process when you're doing like soft launches, or you're kind of in an iterative stage where you want feedback, but you're also recognizing that the full vision hasn't been executed yet?
Yeah, I think that's something that's tried and true with apps for 20 years, I think, where you just run a beta with it. So we definitely do betas at Circle, for example. There's it's public that we bought a company called Cypavo, and so there's a custody solution that we're looking at, and it doesn't even matter if that's the product or something new, but running a beta is always going to be incredibly significant to get that feedback. It could be that you're launching something and customers just find it incredibly difficult to use it, or you can find out difficulties that they have with other competitors that you can bake into your feature set. So there is a competitor of ours that it like the sign up time takes anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. I can't even imagine signing up for anything that takes to 8 to 10 hours. And a lot of that happens when we're dealing with KYC and AML stuff, because you have to do some kind of a background check. But in general, that was a pain point that they went through with a different product that we can then bake into our product itself. And that just comes from a lot of one-on-one conversations. Any?
So one thing, a common problem in a tech company is that tension. Common problem in a tech company is that tension between the product team having a deadline. You were speaking about deadlines, and then the marketing team having a deadline, and sometimes the marketing team accelerates the deadline, and the product team gets pissed off, and there's the tension there. Can you talk about that a little bit and how you deal with that?
Yeah. So we're running through this right now. Again, we announced this at Converge, which is a big event that we had a couple of weeks ago, but we're going live on a couple of new chains. I'm in charge of the firm we're going live date, and I picked a time. We're on the East. Our team is pretty well split between the East Coast and the West Coast, and the time for launch I picked was, I don't know why I said this, but it was 8 p.m. Eastern, which is literally our 5 in the morning, which I'll be honest, West Coast, we're pretty sleepy in the morning. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, everyone's like, yeah, you've got to catch the news cycle, blah, blah, blah. And I shared it with the Eng team, and they're like, no, not only that, but it's a week later than you expected. And so there was compromise we had to make, because before we went live with any of the partners, we're perpetually talking about it. But again, that battle doesn't end, I don't think, with any product. So we're always trying to definitely push it as fast as we can to get it to market. But at the end of the day, we have what we call a go, no-go meeting, basically. So we'll still prepare everything to go live on an X date, but we've got maybe a 48-hour window where if we have to cut it off, we will. And in advance, we just basically draft the comms for teams, et cetera. And we obviously, again, at Circle, we've got the luxury of a budget to spend on press releases. And so that go, no-go event for us is basically where we'll make that final choice. So as much as marketing may want to say we're the end-all be-all, no, for sure. If engineering comes out and they're like, no, we just can't do it, we're not going to be okay, we have to push it live. So
this is unrelated. Do you have, when you were talking about the various roles in your marketing department, do you have an org chart you could share that would just sort of spell out all those roles of everybody?
Yeah. So I don't have one, and I'll be honest, I think we're still kind of reforming the org chart. So from the outside, Circle might look like, I think we're definitely pretty well organized and structured, but we're for sure a startup in some capacities where we're definitely morphing. We actually had a pretty big change this past week of how we're thinking about integrated marketing throughout the entire org. So I don't know if I can share something like that, but maybe when it's more finalized, I might be able to spell something out. Yeah, I guess this is the shameless Circle stuff. But if you want to just shoot me a message on Telegram, happy to just follow up and get whatever I can.
I know you guys work technically with regulation, but one of the things I've been most surprised by coming into the DeFi space is what you can and cannot say from a marketing perspective because of the financial implications.
Yeah.
How do you guys deal with it? And I imagine for you guys, you guys have a team of lawyers who tell you what you cannot say, but what did you guys do early on, and how do you make sure that you're able to articulate the things you want to articulate as a marketer while still balancing not getting consumed?
Yeah, the lawyer part is new to me too, actually. So we definitely pass a lot by legal, and the way that we articulate, at Circle, we typically, because you can't engage with Circle directly as a retail investor. You have to be an institution, and there's KYC and AML involved with that, so it's a different process. But I think it really depends on where you are on the spectrum, because at Circle, yes, now it's much more buttoned up. We pass almost everything by legal before it goes live. And the big thing that we want to be careful of is not having this misperception that you can immediately come to Circle and get USDC from us, because it's not that easy. You have to get a Circle account. You have to go through this process. That's why we work with chain partners, because it's much easier to work with chain partners as retail. That's not why, but anyway. But on the opposite side of it, before that, when I was with this other protocol, we were very scrappy. The idea of legal team didn't matter. Very, very degen to the So I say that because like I think just in general the Web3 space is still trying to figure this out. Like even on this previous project, like we just want regulation to come through in some capacity, so we have some way to work around it. Again, we could go on. I'm happy to talk to any of you, on the side about thoughts on nation states and laws and regulations and how it applies. I've got a strong stance on all of that, but like, I hate to say this, but you're still kind of rolling the dice. But if you're working, like, for example, if you're building on Avalanche, I know for a fact you can reach out to Avalanche. You can get details from them, like how they might position it. The other thing is just jump into Discords and jump into Twitter and jump into all these places and just ask people. Again, to bring it up on that last slide, and if there's anything that you take away from all of this stuff, the most significant thing for me is just education. Always educating yourself and your customers, because if you've got that question, somebody else has that question, and there are attorneys out there who are happy to help you address it. So.